Lawrence, we've already seen evidence that there's attempts to meddle happening already by state actors. How well prepared are we now with less than 50 days to go?
Yeah, look, people should know we're in pretty good shape. People should know that the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Federal Election Assistance Commission, all of these agencies have been working with state and local officials to prepare for cyber attacks, and in particular to detect and, if something happens, to recover from those kinds of attacks. And so in the next 49 days, really, election officials are going to be looking at those plans, reviewing them, and making sure that they're well implemented.
Now, there have been some problems in the primaries so far. In Nevada, candidates' names were missing from touchscreens. In South Carolina and in Kansas, some of the machines malfunctioned or didn't work at all. How concerning are these issues?
Well, no election is perfect. So the fact that we saw these are kind of typical problems that we see in elections, but they give us a little bit of a clue as to what could go wrong on Election Day this November. Many things that happen by accident can happen because of a bad actor, and obviously, when you're talking about a cyber attack, the worry is that it could be much more widespread. So the key is to be prepared for those kinds of things ahead of time and make sure that that you can recover if we do see that kind of thing on Election Day.
What kind of training have election officials undergone up to this point?
Well, there have been a lot of things like tabletop exercises where the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI will run through various scenarios of the kinds of things that can go wrong, and asking election officials, what procedures do you have in place to recover if, for instance, a bunch of voting machines aren't working? What do you do at that point? That's been a really big focus of the last few months, and of course just basic cybersecurity training as well. And one of the things that the Brennan Center has done, we have put out checklists for election officials, and we're hoping that this is useful to them as they are reviewing in the next few weeks to make sure that they're ready for any kinds of problems.
We've talked in the past about problems with the election websites, with registration in general. Last night at the Emmys, one actress implored everyone to register right then, to bring a friend to the polls. That's more about making sure everybody has a voice. But what can voters do to do their part to make sure that democracy is not threatened?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, I mentioned this checklist that the Brennan Center put out. We sent that to 2,000 election officials. We got back really positive responses. Just calling in to your election official, I think they want to hear from folks and talk about what they're doing. And asking them about that checklist, I think, is certainly something that would be very helpful. Another thing is, you mentioned registration. Most states, you can check your registration online. That can be an early warning sign. We know that the Russians in the 2016 elections tried to access registration databases. If people see that their information is wrong, letting election officials know that they've seen that can be an early warning signal that something may be up. So that's certainly something that people should do. And of course, go vote.
Absolutely. So over the next 49, 48 days or so, what are you and your team going to be doing?
The big thing is checking in with election officials, making sure that these contingency plans are in place. We want to make sure, for instance, in the 21 states that are using electronic voting machines, they're sometimes called direct electronic recording machines, have emergency paper ballots available 2 to 3 hours. So if machines aren't functioning, people can still vote. We saw this in the primaries where their emergency paper ballots were there. People could still vote. You didn't get long lines. Where they weren't, people were turned away. That's a huge thing. Making sure that all of these plans are in place and that we can carry them out, and that voters have confidence that they can go vote and trust in the outcomes when they come down.